Live from Lincoln Center in the heart of the Dallas Metroplex, this is Nip Talk, an honest and uncensored show about plastic surgery, health, beauty, and lifestyle, with your host, plastic surgeon Dr. Bruce Hermann, and your co-host, entrepreneur and social media influencer Sarah Bennett. Now it's time to discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly of the topics everyone is talking about. It's time for Nip Talk.
Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to Nip Talk. We got a great show for you today. We're going to be talking about plastic surgery complications. We're going to talk about Real Housewives of New York City, Bethenny Frankel saying that Instagram filters are the devil. And lastly, we're going to have some more breast implant torture tests. I'm your host, plastic surgeon Dr. Bruce Hermann, and with me, as always, is my co-host Sarah Bennett. In the box, we got Trelvis, the man behind the scenes. What's up, Trelvis?
Happy Friday, happy Friday.
Happy Friday. I love doing the show because I know it's Friday.
I love it myself.
Yeah.
Friday is always my favorite day.
Friday's my favorite day, too.
Ditto.
Yes,
Yeah. So, anybody have anything exciting happen this week? Anything interesting around the table?
I was going to make Halloween cookies with my daughter last night, but it got too late, so we just got the cookies made. So tonight.
That's a good Friday project,
Yeah.
making cookies with your daughter,
Absolutely.
Halloween ones.
What flavor cookies are they like?
Well,
What
they're
kind of cookies?
sugar cookies, so
Oh,
we're
that's
just
dope.
decorating them like purple ice cream. I'm
So,
seeing-
like, do you have like the shapes of like a ghost and like a witch and all that?
No,
or?
I'm not that hardcore.
I'm expecting like some.
But
like,
we are going to make a fire and have s'mores afterwards,
That's
so
dope.
it's going to be full of sugar.
That does sound really good.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
dope.
awesome. Well, speaking of eating a lot of food, I did go to the state fair last weekend.
Okay,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
you said
Yeah.
that.
I
Yeah.
went yesterday. No, I'm sorry, Wednesday. I went Wednesday as well, so.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
So, all right, did you eat anything like really crazy out there, Travis? Like,
Ooh,
like
we
fried
tried.
beer or something?
Not that. We tried alligator.
Oh, you did alligator?
Yeah, it was terrible.
Everybody says it tastes like chicken.
Oh, no.
I think alligator's pretty rubbery. I've had it a
Oh,
couple
yeah.
times, and like, I don't know, it's like, it's just not tender, or maybe, I don't
Is it
know.
like calamari?
Yes, I think so. What do you think? Have you had calamari?
I've never
Travis?
had calamari before.
Oh, okay.
But to me, alligator, it tastes like the water that it comes out of. Like, it just does not taste great at all.
Water comes out of it? What?
What the water that the alligator comes out of.
Oh, it tastes like the water. It tastes like, so you're saying it tastes like a swamp?
It does. It tastes like a swamp. But we did have fried greens as well. Those are really good.
Fried greens?
Yeah, fried greens, which is like basically just greens in a pastry. But
Oh, wow.
they fry them, I guess. But it was good, and it was a
Nice.
great experience at the
That's
fair.
like the biggest thing when I go to the fairs, because like, I mean, I don't want to eat like 20,000 calories,
Absolutely.
but like, I want to try everything. So I have to kind of decide like, where am I going to put my calories at? But I always get one of those Fletcher's Cornies dogs. Have you guys had those?
I have. Yeah, we got one of those too.
Oh man, I
you
love
have
those.
to. It's like tradition. when you
Yeah,
go to
it
the
is. I can't go to the fair not. And then the other thing I always do on the way out is I get saltwater taffy.
Oh wow.
Like I usually eat pretty healthy. I mean, honestly, but like when I go to the fair, it's like all bets are off. Like,
I mean, that's how it's supposed to be, though. Right?
is it? I don't know. I always feel guilty. Like it's like, you know, everyone like, oh gosh, I can't eat for like 2 days before we go to the fair because I gotta like save up my calories.
Do you play any of the games? out
I
there?
do. Like I realize that those games are not made to like win. And
No,
even if you do
absolutely.
win, like you can buy whatever it is cheaper than the cost of the games. But my
100%, yeah.
kids love them, and so you know we always buy game tickets. And then like my daughter, she's so cute. She's like, Dad, can you win me this thing? I'm like, probably not, but I have to try, right? Like,
Perhaps not. Yeah.
Probably not, but I used to be really good. So I played baseball in high school, and when they used to have the baseballs in the beer bottles, like I could do that. Like I was pretty good, but now like I'm getting old, so like, you know, I'm kind of losing my fastball, and I tried it this time, and yeah, I actually came up a little short this
Ah,
year.
it sucks getting old.
It does suck getting old, but I don't know, Travis, do you try those games? Are you good at any of them?
So sometimes I'll be like brave enough to try the basketball games.
Oh,
but,
right.
Yeah. Other than that, and like you said, most of the time they are a scam. Like
Well,
it's-
right, because the basketball one, the way they make you lose is they air that ball up so much that, like, if it hits any part of that rim, it's like, woo!
Absolutely. You have to have the perfect shot.
It has to be like a perfect swish. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think my daughter won something. She was doing one of those games where, like, you know, everybody wins, and she ended up winning something. But yeah, it was
That's
good. We
cool.
rode rides and.
What ride did you ride? That's what I was going to ask
favorite
next.
one.
Yeah.
So I like the one. It's called like the Hulk or something, and like it's pretty wild. Like they strap you in it, and then it swings, but then it spins.
Oh,
like,
wow.
and it's really tall. Like it's pretty crazy.
That's dope.
I always look at those things. I'm like, man, is this really safe? I'm like, well, no one's died yet. So, but yeah, that was probably my favorite one. But yeah, the fair is always a good time. And the people watching is great because you get all kinds of people out there.
Yes.
I love people watching. Wherever we go, I'm like,
Is it like going to Walmart, like on steroids, I feel like?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Like,
I've lived in a lot of states over the years, and I will say that the Dallas or the Texas State Fair, I mean, you do get some very interesting people, but like when I was like, like in Kentucky, man, that was like another level of people. No offense to Kentucky, I lived here for many years, but you get some interesting folks out there at the fair.
I can only imagine. That's so funny.
We should do like a tour of state fairs and see who's got the best people watching.
That'll be dope.
But yeah, it was good. So yeah, other than that, it's been a pretty standard week for me. Just work and doing show stuff and all that. Yeah. Now you got something coming up, and we'll talk about this for a second. Didn't you organize some sort of wine walk?
Yeah.
You want to tell us about that?
Yeah. So I organized my store, Rose and Thorn. We organized an event for Denton. So
Love Denton.
Yeah. So it's called the Denton Wine Tasting Tour. And it's going to be our first one, and we're really excited about it. And I know there's a lot of those type of tours in downtown areas, but I feel like ours is
the square is unique.
Yeah, I think it's much more elevated experience because we've got a winery that's hosting, or like not hosting, but sponsoring it. So you actually get the chance to buy the wine that they're
tasting,
sampling.
So it's a little bit more like put together and upscale.
Yeah, like it's not just like, hey.
So how many stops are on the wine walk?
So I think there's 18.
So you have to drink a glass of wine at each one?
Well, like 2-ounce pour. Yeah, you don't have to.
I'm going to go. I want to go because, I live pretty close to there. And my wife and I are both big wine fans. So we're definitely going to go.
Yeah, and then like most of the shops like mine, we're going to be offering special discounts. So whoever's got like their little VIP bracelet will get like a special discount wherever they are.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to have to go to your store first because if I'm at the end of 18 glasses of wine, I come in your store, I'm like, oh, Sarah.
Yeah, bring your wife. Yeah, then she can buy her all the clothes.
Sarah, you're going to give a discount, but you're going to have the 18 glasses of wine. It's going to be like a 200% discount.
Yeah.
20 is going to turn it like 200%.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, if you live in the Dallas area, check out the Denton Wine Walk. That's Wednesday, correct?
Yes.
So that's 26th. Wednesday, October
26th.
26th.
Yeah.
And what time does that start?
6 to 9.
6 to 9. I'll be there.
Yes.
We'll take some video.
Yes.
It'll be fun. All right. So I want to move on to the Plastic Surgery 411. And today we're going to talk about something that I get lots of questions about when people come into my office, and that is, what are the complications of plastic surgery? Because if you're going to go through plastic surgery, I do think it's very important that you understand what those potential risks can be. And so when people come into my office, I do spend a lot of time with them and go over all parts of surgery, but I do talk about the risk because, for the most part, plastic surgery is low risk. I mean, statistically, you can look at the research on it. But that doesn't mean that 100% of the time things go great. And so I think it is very important to educate patients. So we're going to talk about some of those things. So as I said, in general, the risks of plastic surgery are pretty low. And looking at what's the worst complication that can happen, which would be death, the risk of that is very, very low. Yes. It's actually 1 in 300,000 for elective plastic surgery procedures. But there is one procedure that does carry a little bit more risk. And so I'm going to spring this on you guys. I hope you're ready. So we're going to do quiz today. So we have quiz questions for you guys. Now, don't feel bad if you don't get them. I mean, these are surgery questions.
I'm going to win.
Oh, it's a competition, Travis. You ready? She said she's going to school you.
I like trash talk.
All right. So let's throw up the first question, Travis. So what plastic surgery has the highest mortality rate? So you can choose between liposuction, BBLs, Brazilian butt lift, tummy tuck, or facelift. And of course, mortality rate means your risk of dying. So trash talking Sarah, I'm going to let you go first on this one. Which one has the highest mortality rate?
I feel like it might be tummy tuck, but I'm not really like.
Okay, see, just roll with it.
I know that I've heard that one's like the hardest in terms of like recovery.
So you think it might have the highest mortality rate?
Maybe.
Travis.
So I'll say BBL.
That was my second one.
Travis, you are right.
Yeah.
Dang, I should have known that because I think
we talked about it. We did talk about it. I was wondering if you guys would pick that up. Yeah. So the risk of mortality with Brazilian butt lift is 100 times higher It's 1 in 3,000 for Brazilian butt lift. And the reason for that,
Oh, you're gonna tell us.
yeah, the reason for that is there's the risk that, so Brazilian butt lift, for those who are not familiar, is where you harvest fat from one area and you inject it into your buttocks area to kind of plump it up. You see it on social media all the time. I personally don't do them. There's a lot of things that are associated with that, and we're going to talk about it in a minute. But they are pretty popular. But the risk of mortality comes from when you're injecting that fat, there's a small chance that that fat gets into your bloodstream because you inject it into a blood vessel and not an area where you want it to. And if you get fat in your bloodstream, it is lethal. It's a very, very dangerous thing. So that's why it carries a higher mortality rate. So crazy stuff. All right, moving on. So outside of death, the other things that we talk about with surgery as far as risk are infection and bleeding. So throw up that next question. So we're talking about 100 years ago. The risk of surgical infection in World War I, so that's 100 years ago versus today. So answer A is the risk of infection was 100% in World War I versus 90% today. Answer B, risk of infection in World War I, 90% versus 50% today, and then C is 70% and 1%, and D is 5%, 0%. Do you understand how I... Okay,
yeah,
Travis,
absolutely.
Since you got that one right, you're up first, buddy.
Oh, man.
Which one are you going to say?
So if I had to say, it would be 90-50.
90. So you think that there's a 50% chance of you getting an infection if you have surgery today?
I don't think there's a 50% chance, but I think back then it was much higher. I think today is not as high.
So which one are you going to go with?
But... All right, you know what? No, I'm going to change
it. I can't see it anymore.
I'm going to change it. It's C.
C?
I'm going to say C.
That's the one I was going to go with.
C? All right, you guys are both right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So the point, the reason I made that question up is to show how the risk of infection has changed over the last 100 years. It was really high back when we didn't really understand, what was causing infection and how to prevent it. So, 100 years ago, which, that's a long time, but not that long, it was really high if you had surgery. Nowadays, I actually, when I talk to my patients, I say it's less than 1% risk.
Yeah,
and
I feel like back then they were like, let's not have surgery. Let's just cut it off. Let's just cut it off.
Yeah. So yeah, things are much better today from the standpoint of infection, and also for bleeding, which is the other risk that carries with any surgery is bleeding, right? And so I do have another question about bleeding. So let's throw it up there. So what invention 100 years ago decreased the risk of surgical bleeding? So answer A would be electrocautery, which is electricity. B, Elmer's glue. C, a stapler. Or D, sponges. Sarah, I'm going to let you go first.
I hope not Elmer's glue. God. So 100 years ago.
Yeah, 100 years ago, something was developed.
Sponges.
All right, Travis?
100 years. I'll say A.
Electrocautery. Travis, you're in the lead, buddy.
Yeah.
I didn't think that was
Electrocautery, yeah. So there's a guy named Bovie who invented a machine that could basically transmit electricity to tissue. And I think it was Halsted, if I remember correctly, was the famous surgeon that saw this machine on display and then asked him to come and use it in surgery. And so we still call the electrocautery the Bovie, named after the man Bovie. What's interesting, if you like history, Bovie gave away that patent for $1. Yeah,
oh, wow.
He made this machine that we still use today and carries this name, and he sold the patent for $1. And he ended up dying a poor man.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Eesh.
But anyway, so electrocautery does decrease the risk of bleeding. Risk of bleeding today is less than 1% as well. So, so now we're going to talk a little bit more specific risks. And I want to start out with breast augmentation surgery. And we're talking about what is the highest risk. Because every surgery carries one risk that I say, okay, this is the one we're really going to watch out for. Yes, bleeding is a risk, infection is a risk, it's really low. But with each surgery, there's one thing that I tell patients. So for breast augmentation surgery, is it breast explosion, B, infection, C, contracture, which is scarring around the implant, or D, implant rupture. Let's see, who went first last time? I can't remember.
I think Sarah went first, yeah.
Travis?
So this one was tricky. I feel like it's either, well, I don't want to say, but
there's no penalty for getting it wrong, buddy. You're in the lead too, so
I know it.
You should have some swagger, man.
Nah, I like to win. You confident to the end. You know what I'm saying? Or concentration to the end.
Okay, man.
B is what I'm gonna say.
Infection.
Yeah, I'll say B.
Okay, Sarah.
Couldn't see.
Contracture. Sarah, you're catching up. C's right.
Man.
Yeah, so contraction is scarring around the implant. That is the biggest risk of getting a breast augmentation or breast implants. If you look at all patients in the United States, the risk of contracture is around 10%, which, that's pretty high when you're talking about things like risk of infection being 1% or bleeding 1%. Now, for people who do a lot of these, the risk is usually lower because there are a lot of people out there doing augmentations that shouldn't. You get non-plastic surgeons doing them. It can be a little bit shady. In my practice, I run about 3%. That's my estimated risk, which, that's a lot lower than the national average. But like as many augmentations as I do in a year, that means I get like a couple patients per year in my own practice that get scarring. Now, the good news is it's easily fixable.
Okay.
It's easily fixable to fix contracture, but you have to go back to surgery to do it.
What do you do?
So basically what happens is the layer that forms around the implant forms too tight. So the first step is you go in and you just make slits in that capsule to let it relax. Okay. And that works, I'd say that works, over 90% of the time.
How do women usually know that they have
Great question. So the implant should just blend in with your breast tissue. Okay. Silicone implants feel like breast. If you feel your implant very distinctly, that's kind of the first sign that you have a contracture. And then as that contracture gets worse, the implant goes from a teardrop to a donut shape, and the breast starts to get really full up top, and then people are like, something's wrong. Nice. So that's contracture. All right, next one is tummy tuck. We just talked about tummy tuck. You were talking about. Yeah. What is the highest risk of tummy tuck surgery? So A, we got healing issues. B, we got bleeding. C, seroma. So seroma is a fluid collection on the inside. And the last one is death. So Travis went first. So Sarah, you're up.
I'm gonna say C because I know there's a lot of fluid.
Okay, seroma. All right.
We're back.
Travis?
C was actually gonna be my answer as well.
C. Okay, so technically the answer is A, but I'm gonna give you guys credit for C because there is a caveat. So for me, I think the highest risk is healing issues. It can be up to 20%. Okay. Now, the reason I'm gonna give you credit for seroma is because if you do a tummy tuck without using a drain, the risk of seroma goes way, way up. Yeah. And so that could be the highest risk depending on how the surgeon does it. Okay. I personally use drains with all my tummy tucks, so by putting a drain in, it eliminates the risk of seroma, more or less. Like I just had this happen, you're not gonna bleed. So I put these drains in, right? And I tell patients, okay, we'll take these out for you when the time's right. And I actually have had patients pull their own drains out. It just blows my mind, and I just had it happen. And I've gotten to the point now where I tell patients specifically, do not pull your own drains out. But I had somebody do it just the other day, and luckily they're going to do fine because they pulled them out pretty late. But the point I was making is that if you pull the drains out too soon, then you can get a seroma. Yeah. Now I'm pretty conservative, so for me, seroma risk is really 0%. I never see them. So in my practice, the biggest risk is healing issues. The reason that healing issues are the biggest risk with tummy tuck is that the surgery does devascularize or cut some of the blood supply to your skin, and then you're sewing that big incision together and saying, okay, incision heal, and the biggest factor for how well you heal is blood flow, and you're doing an operation that affects that. So it makes a lot of sense that healing issues would be your biggest risk. And what I mean by healing issues, because a lot of people be like, okay, well, what does that mean? Issues with the incision not healing properly. Like it might be scabs on the incision, or you can even see the incision open up a little bit. And those are not bad problems. It may sound like a terrible thing, like if you have your incision open a little bit, but really you just treat it with some dressings and they always heal. So
yeah, it kind of sounds like C-section, because I had a C-section.
Yeah. Right, yeah. C-section carries a high risk of healing issues as well. Yeah. It's a little bit different in that scenario. It's not as much blood flow with C-section. It's risk of bacteria and stuff, because that's a pretty dirty operation.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the same thing. So, all right, moving on to the next one, which is liposuction, I think. Is it, Travis? Yep. Highest risk of having liposuction. Infection, seroma, which we know is a fluid collection. Stroke, which is a blood clot to your brain, or D, constipation. And Travis, I think you're up.
So I will say infection.
Infection?
Stroke.
You think the highest risk of having liposuction is stroke?
Oh no, that's
That's really bad.
No, that's I was thinking about whatever you were saying.
Dr.
To put
Herman's
fat
face.
back into the body.
Oh right, yeah. No, that's for BBL. Yeah. All right, so you want to recalculate that answer?
Yeah, let me do that real quick. I'm gonna go with D. I'm just kidding.
Constipation?
I was just joking.
Oh, okay. You're blowing my mind today, Sarah. But that's why you're here.
Now I can't think. Okay, I'm just gonna go with A because I don't know what else to do.
Okay, I forgot. Now I even forgot what Travis said. But
He said A.
Yeah, I said A as well.
The answer is B. Seroma.
Oh.
So
Dang.
seroma is a fluid collection.
You steered me wrong. Dude.
I steered you wrong?
He did.
Oh, Travis did? Oh,
That's why
okay.
you shouldn't say what I say.
Oh, man. Today is a wheels off day, but I love it. Okay, so seroma is a fluid collection. In all the 13 years I've been doing plastic surgery here, I've had one complication with liposuction. It was seroma. It is the highest risk because what you're doing with liposuction is you're sucking out fat, right? So imagine in the body you got this fat, and then I'm going to take it out. Well, what's left? There's a space there, right? And when you have spaces in your body's natural reaction is to put fluid in that space, and that is a seroma. Now, the way we combat that is when you do liposuction, you put compression on people, so like a wrap of some sort, and that pushes those layers together so that fluid can't collect. And so I've only had one seroma that I know of, and I think the patient wasn't really wearing their binder. And it's easy to solve. I put a needle in, draw the fluid out, and I had to do it a couple times, but it did solve the problem. So in general, liposuction, it carries some of the lowest risks in plastic surgery, if done properly. So, yeah. All right, well, moving on. Next one is breast lift, breast reduction. Now, I put these together because those operations are very, very similar. The only difference between a breast lift and a breast reduction is a breast reduction has one extra step, which is to remove some tissue. So, what is the highest risk? We got nipple loss, ooh, that's pretty bad, healing issues, diarrhea, or you end up with 3 breasts. Who's up? Is it Sarah? Sarah, you get to go first. You get to redeem yourself.
The 3 breast thing, isn't that from like a movie? Like it was like a time?
Total Recall, yes.
Yeah, Total Recall, that's it.
Damn, I'm so happy someone picked it up.
That is hilarious.
All right, which one?
Healing issues.
Okay, healing issues. Travis?
Yeah, I gotta say B, healing.
You guys are killing it. Nice job.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So just like with tummy tuck, when you do those surgeries, you are making a lot of cuts in tissue, you're devascularizing the breast to a certain degree, and you're putting everything together and saying, I want you to heal properly. So if you look at breast lift, breast reductions, the highest risk would be healing issues. However, if you go to somebody who does a short scar technique, which is why I do that, I did a fellowship specific to cosmetic breast and body, and I learned how to do these short scar lifts and reductions. That risk is cut down tremendously. For me, like my risk of healing issues with lift is pretty much 0. I almost never see it. With breast reduction, which is a little bit more invasive surgery, I occasionally see it, not very often. So, but yeah. So if you're out there and you're thinking about doing a breast lift, breast reduction, find somebody who does short scar. I promise it's worth it. Okay, next one, facelifts. All right. So with facelift, what is the biggest risk? Spontaneous dental implosion, your face completely falls off, bleeding, or infection? Travis, you're up.
Oh man, I don't think your face will completely fall off. That's the one I want to say though, just because
Just for fun.
Yeah, face off with like Nick Cage. And,
Right,
and,
face off.
guy.
Man, you're catching all my little jokes today, Travis.
I feel like as the questions have gotten, like all of your answers or possible answers have gotten more ridiculous.
All right,
So-
then you should nail it. All right, Travis, you're up.
I will say infection. It seems like the most like realistic.
Sarah?
Yeah, D.
Infection. All right. Unfortunately, you guys are wrong.
It's C.
It is bleeding.
Okay.
It's bleeding. Yeah. So let me tell you why. Because that's, obviously it's not dental implosion or your face falling off. The face is actually super resistant to infection because it has such an enormous blood supply. But that enormous blood supply does increase the risk of bleeding. And so with a lot of surgery, we say the risk of bleeding is around 1% or even less. With facelifts, the documented rate is as high as 5% looking at, depending on which study you look at. Now, I've done a lot of facelifts. I've never, knock on wood, had a bleeding episode, but I've taken care of people that, oddly enough, that have gone out other places and they come home and they have bleeding and they get a hematoma. So yeah, with facelift, your biggest risk is bleeding. Now, when you go have a facelift, your surgeon should go over ways that you can minimize those risks, like making sure you're not on blood thinners, making sure you're not taking supplements that thin your blood, making sure you wear your compression to make sure that there's no bleeding, having a drain in to control bleeding. So there are ways to minimize that.
Is there like a certain spot on your face where the bleeding happens? Or
So
is it
when you
just,
do a
like, in
facelift, it's
general?
very similar to other surgeries where you're undermining and tightening and then pulling. So you have this space in your face and your neck when you do that. And there's not like one particular spot where the bleeding happens, but the blood will collect in that face
so you
area.
just look like really swollen.
Yeah, you go whoop like that. Yeah. And the
Okay.
problem with facelift, which makes it more worrisome when you have a bleed, is those skin flaps are pretty thin, and if that blood builds up enough, it can actually kill the skin, which is a horrible problem.
Yeah.
So I've never seen that happen. As I said, I've never had somebody, knock on wood, bleed from a facelift in my practice. I've taken care of a couple people that's happened to, but fortunately they bled but didn't have the skin necrosis.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's the big risk. All right, so lastly, this is a BBL question, all right? You guys should kill this one. What is a risk of Brazilian butt lift? The fat reabsorbs, the fat hardens, asymmetry, or D, all of the above? Sarah, you're up.
B.
All of the above? Travis?
Yeah, it's definitely D's. That's the one.
You guys make me proud. You're absolutely right. So if you've watched much of the show before, you probably heard me talk about Brazilian butt lifts. I mean, they're not terrible surgeries, but I personally won't do them because they do have some issues. Fat always reabsorbs. The fat can harden. When it reabsorbs, it doesn't always reabsorb equally, so you can get some asymmetry. So, there are some potential issues. Plus, we talked about the higher risk of death.
Yeah, you can die.
And you can die. I mean, it's
Just
not
to get a bigger butt.
Yeah, so I mean, if the surgeons are doing those, that's fine. I mean, a lot of people do them, both as surgeons and patients. I personally don't do them. I don't encourage people to do it, but just want to make sure people understand the risk. So, all right, I got a bonus question. Now, this one is pretty interesting, and it is talking about what are the highest risks when you're having surgery. And so I get this, and I'll explain it after the end of the question, but which one of these is not a serious risk factor for when you're having surgery? So nicotine use would be like smoking, vape, marijuana use, having diabetes, or being obese. Travis, you get the final you get to go first on the final question.
This was kind of tough, but if I had to, out of all of them, I feel like diabetes would be the one that's not like a serious. I could be wrong, but
Okay, Sarah.
B.
Sarah got it.
Dang.
The last one. So I get this question a lot because, as marijuana's become legal in other states, it does filter in. So I have people ask me all the time because I'll talk about smoking and then they say, well, what about marijuana use? And really, it doesn't affect surgery that much. Like, I mean, I'm not saying smoking marijuana is good for you, but like it doesn't carry the... That is not the message of today. But when you look at risk factors, it's actually really low down on things. Like nicotine use is bad because it constricts your blood vessels. Yeah. And diabetes is bad because diabetics have chemical imbalances cause them not to heal well. And then lastly, there's a lot of data that shows that if people are obese, that their risks are much higher. So. But anyway, I want to talk about those complications that can potentially pop up with plastic surgery. If you like this segment, please like and subscribe to our channel. And if you have any questions, leave us a comment and we'll answer it on the next episode. So.
I liked that. That was fun.
That was fun. I like the questions, right? Yeah, we should
great
do more
questions.
stuff.
Yeah,
we should
for
do more
sure,
stuff.
great
I don't know. Did we take score? Who won? I think he ended up in a tie.
I totally won.
Oh,
I feel like
I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna look.
I
and
won
I'm gonna
by
see
1 point, but
Maybe like-
yeah.
You did win by 1 point.
I feel like I did. I feel like I don't know.
I think you might have.
Like I won by
I don't know. We'll find out.
Sarah is not with it.
Okay, so next we're gonna do a Nip Tuck 911 sort of segment. This isn't like crazy plastic surgery stuff, but it's more like celebrity news. So you guys ever watch The Real Housewives of whatever, name your favorite city? So one of the original was, the second one was Real Housewives of New York City, and one of the people on there was Bethenny Frankel. Now I was talking to you. You're not familiar with her, Sarah?
Yeah,
You might recognize her.
face.
Okay, Travis, you heard of
let me
Bethenny
see
Frankel?
I have. She has
I
the
know
whipped cream line or something like that, or she has like the
Yeah.
the martini. That's what it is.
Yeah, she does have something like that.
Martini
Yeah.
stuff, yeah.
So, Real House in New York City, Bethenny Frankel has been on a tear on social media for the last few months, talking about how bad that the filters are on social media. And she's saying that they're irresponsibly destructive because they make women feel bad about themselves and they make young women have unrealistic expectations of like what looks normal. And so I kept seeing this, in the feed and the news, and I was like, okay, well, let's dig in and let's talk about this. Because like on face value, like, if you said to me, do I think it's bad that people are misrepresenting like, what a normal body looks like? I'm going to be like, yeah, that is that's not good, right? I mean, we
Right.
don't want young people, looking at something and thinking that's normal and then comparing that to themselves, right?
Yeah.
But then when I started digging a little bit more, I was like, well, maybe there's a little bit more to unpack here. So at first, I do want to show a couple of pictures. These are the pictures that Bethenny has posted, and she's posted more. And so this is basically, the left one is the filtered picture, and the right one is the original picture. And I had to really look at this for a minute to kind of figure out what exactly the difference was. But if you notice, her waist on the left side is quite a bit smaller than the right. I mean, it's like when you look on the left, you're like, yeah, that could be her. But then you look on the right, you're like, oh wow, yeah, it's definitely thinned down a little bit. And also, it looks like her breasts are bigger in the left picture than the right, I think.
Yeah, they look a little fuller there.
Yeah, that's the only thing I really saw in that one. When I first looked at it, and of course, I'm looking at it first on my phone, I'm like, these things look exactly the same. But if you look closely, they are a little bit different. So that's one of the ones that she was posting about how it's different. And then the second one, it's a little bit more noticeable. So you can look at that and you can see that the left picture does look better because you, on the right picture, see that her wrinkles around the edge of her mouth and her nasolabial folds, which is the line to the side of her nose under her cheek, they are definitely less noticeable in the picture on the left versus the picture on the right. And she's using some filter to do that. And so, yeah, I can see that, definitely in that filtered picture, she looks better, for sure. I also, when I was looking at these articles talking about Bethenny Frankel, talking about how bad the filters are, I found a video that was pretty interesting. And this girl is a podcaster, and I didn't go and see what she podcasts about. I think it's lifestyle stuff. Mm-hmm. So she did a video on Instagram, and I want to have us watch the video because it was actually pretty interesting to see. So, Travis, can you throw that video up?
I think by now we're all aware that video editing software exists. But I think something that we don't quite appreciate is the extent of it. I can stand here right now in front of you with my real body, but I can also use an app to make my waist smaller. I can make my hips a little bit wider. I can make my boobs bigger. I could make my waist even a tiny bit smaller than it was. I could grow and get a little taller. I could make my legs slimmer. I can even change my neck and shoulders. And then I can move around. I can exist on your screen, portraying a body that I don't own. I can even change my face. I can change the structure of it, the colour of my eyes. I can be anything I want to be using apps, and I don't have to tell you. So please let this be a reminder next time you feel insecure because you've seen something on Instagram, that it is very easy to manipulate the image here.
Pretty crazy, right?
That's intense.
So the one thing I will tell you guys, I don't know if you noticed it in the video because we're looking at it on screen or whatever, but when you're looking at it up close, you can absolutely see the distortion in the video.
Yeah.
There's no way that you could do that on a video and people not know. I mean, it's if you go back and look at it, it's obvious. There's the wall is wavy from her.
I did notice that when I was looking. Yeah, I did notice that. I guess unless you sitting down, maybe if you sitting down, you won't be able to notice it quite because you're not moving as much. But
well, or maybe just in not so much of a textured background.
Yeah, you'd have to do a blank wall, a white wall. Yeah. But I thought that video was pretty interesting because, I know that stuff exists because I may not have seen it before. But I think her message is pretty good. Her message is okay, this isn't evil, but just be aware that it happens. And, looking at those two people, Bethenny Frankel, who's, she's just on a tear about how terrible filters are. And then, this other girl is just okay, we'll be aware of it. I do kind of I lean more towards the second girl. Is okay, let's make sure people realize this, right? Because there's a lot of things that you can kind of talk about, as far as these filters go. The first thing I'm going to throw up there, and I don't hate to dog Bethenny Frankel, but she has had plastic surgery.
Yeah.
She's admitted to having breast surgery, and she's admitted to doing Botox and I think some other facial stuff. And so, is it a little hypocritical of her to go and modify her body, but then also tell people that, if you use a filter on social media, that's bad?
Yeah, it's a little contradictory because she's a living filter.
Yeah, right. Yes, she's a living filter, right?
Filter.
And and we all do that. I'm not saying that getting plastic surgery is bad either,
No.
but it is a little bit, odd for her to like get on, and also she's super rich, by the way. I was looking, she's worth like $80 million from all of like the Real Housewives and like all her business. She's like very well off. I mean, she can buy like all of these skin treatments and makeup and like all of this. I mean, makeup too, right? I mean, a lot of women use makeup. Is that the same argument that like if somebody's using makeup that like that's not real life? I mean, I don't know. Like at first when I saw Bethenny talking about that, I was like, oh yeah, okay. But then I don't know, the more I think about it, like, if you're like a girl sitting, at home and like, say you can't afford to have plastic surgery and say, you can't go and get Botox and you can make a filter, make you look a little bit better. Is that a bad thing?
I think it's the prime example of you shouldn't throw stones in a glass house. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, right? I mean, I do think, I'm going to be the first person to say that like, it bothers me when women look at stuff like in the media or on social media and then they get down on themselves,
Right.
Because I think the second girl's message is the message you should say. Everything that you see is probably altered to some degree. People either alter themselves or they're altering their pictures. And so when you look at that stuff, you have to go in with the thought process that this is not real life.
Yeah, social media is such a weird place. Like
I know it is a weird place. It's like a bizarro universe.
Besides like physically altering, like how it does that, like people do that with their personalities on their
They
too.
do. I mean, I do that.
Like you're not. Like,
I'm not this like blah like.
Like I'm not always happy 24/7 and always working out all the time,
I know,
or you
right?
know, stuff like that. So I think it's funny when people think that that's who I am.
Yeah.
100% of the time, or when people are like they appear happily married and
and then behind the scenes, you never know what's happening
behind the scenes. They freaking hate each other.
Somebody put it the perfect way one time, and I always think about this when I look at social media. It's nothing but a highlight reel.
It is.
It's just literally
total
just a
highlight reel. It's funny, like talking about the personality stuff, because like I mean, I have like my personality here on the show. I'm a little bit more, Greg.
Upbeat, yeah.
I'm a little bit more upbeat because like I'm a sometimes pretty quiet guy, and like so when I was doing a lot of live streams, which really is kind of how this show spawned. I was the same way on the live streams as I am now, and then I would make posts like at home, and it's like me just sit around and be like, hey, what's up, and people were like, who is this guy? You're not the guy I see on the live streams. But yeah, it's pretty funny, like, how social media just like it's not real life, and so I don't know. Like, I personally tell people if you want to use a filter, go for it. I mean, the one thing where I would really be against it is if you get like an influencer who was, say for example, using filters and then saying, oh, I got this from working out, or I got this from using a product maybe that I'm selling.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that would be like definitely out of bounds, but
that's illegal.
Is it?
Isn't it?
I don't know.
If like a company's like, here, can you like advertise for us, and then they're like, use this filter.
It's definitely, maybe fraud. I don't know.
I feel like it's a slippery slope.
False advertising?
False advertising, that's it. Yeah, definitely bad business practice. So, I mean, I'd have a problem with that, or, but even celebrities, right? Like if a celebrity is running around using filters and constantly posting that on social media, and then they go out and like, People magazine takes their picture, everyone would know.
Right.
So it's like, I don't know. I just don't think it's quite as big as a problem. To all those people out there, if you want to use a filter, go for it.
I use filters.
Yeah. I was going to ask you guys, you use them? Mm-hmm. I don't. Like, the only filter I use maybe to change, like, the lighting. Like, I don't use filters to change my body.
No, I don't use a filter to change my body. Okay. There's like a...
I didn't know if you just wanted maybe, like, I don't know. I haven't seen you doing that, but... This is not the real you.
No. It's all animated.
But,
I use one, but I think it's more of, like... It's almost like they put makeup on you. Like
really?
It's like more of like a makeup thing, not like I'm gonna make your face smaller. Or like your.
I'm not. So the one social media platform I'm not on is. I mean, I am on it, but the one I don't use is Snapchat. But the other day I was messing around with my daughter, and I was like, oh my God, there's like all these like crazy, look, I'm a dog, look, I'm a witch, those are kind of fun. I mean.
I think Snapchat always has the best ones.
Do they?
For funny ones.
Yeah, I had to draw the line at social media platforms, like, because I was on like Instagram and TikTok, Facebook. I was like, I just don't have time for Snapchat.
I don't have Snapchat.
I have it, but I never use it. Like I get all these alerts, like, oh, so-and-so wants to be your friend on Snapchat. I'm like, yeah, maybe next year.
I'm not gonna lie to kids, they use Snapchat a lot.
Oh, and it's funny about Snapchat. My daughter has like this 2-year continuous record for sending a snap to someone.
Oh, wow.
And then she had to go to camp, and so she's like, please, every day send a snap to, it's like Megan, our nanny, who is not with us anymore because my kids are grown now, but she sends a snap every day for like 2 years. So we had to do it for while she was at camp
funny.
to keep some streak up.
That's cute.
The younger generation loves it.
I feel like Snapchat, at least for me, is like an excuse for guys, like instead of asking for your phone number, they're like, what's your Snapchat?
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Is it
funny?
Travis, is that a thing?
I
Travis
get asked that all the time.
I cannot co-sign, but I've heard that, like, when, and a friend of mine, we were having this conversation, sometimes guys will ask for your like social media instead of like your
phone number,
contact, like your phone number.
Yeah, I've done that before, yeah, but I hadn't heard the Snapchat thing, but I've been out of the dating scene for a couple decades now, so. I have a friend that's funny, like one of my really good friends, well, he was up here a few times in the booth, Robert, you know, he's on those things, and so he tries to like keep me up to speed, and he'll like sometimes give me his phone. I'm like, oh, let me, and I'm like, is it left or right? Like, which one is like the good one?
I have never downloaded one of those.
You haven't? Yeah.
My friends have always asked me to do it.
I don't know, man. I think, you know, I mean, obviously I've been married a long time, and I don't foresee me being on the dating scene anytime soon. But I don't know, like the online dating to me, like, it just seems cumbersome. Like, it's just like, it's like hard enough to get to know people when you're like with them, but then like now first you gotta like get to know them on like an app. I don't know, like.
I like one-on-one interaction just because nothing gets lost in translation.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
totally,
you can't misinterpret somebody's tone if you face to face.
Yeah, if you're right there with them.
Right. So.
But I don't know.
I'm not a fan.
So you're not on the, what is the big one? Is it
I don't know. There's like Hinge, Tinder.
Yeah. You can't even keep up with them because they keep popping up.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right. Well, that was fun. All right. So so use filters if you want. I think it's okay.
Or don't.
Or don't.
Don't use social media at all.
Well, leave us a comment. Do you use filters? Put us a comment. Let us know. We'd like to see what you think about that, and give us a like and subscribe if you like that segment. All right, moving on. So this one's gonna be pretty fun, and I'm gonna quiz you guys again because we're about to talk about how strong breast implants are. And I get this question all the time when people come in my office for breast augmentation consults. And the reason I thought about this segment is because I did a few augmentation consults this week, and I had one girl ask me if I fall off my horse, will the implant rupture? And the other girl asked me, this one yesterday, she's like, I ride dirt bikes. If I crash my dirt bike, what is the chance of my implant rupturing, right? And so over the years of being on social media, like just for giggles, I've done a lot of like torture tests on breast implants. I have like boxes of these things in my office.
Yeah.
Like we get all these samples, and so we'll sacrifice an implant to science to see if if it.
Science.
I love the science part.
Science.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna run a couple videos, but before we roll them, I'm gonna ask you guys. So the first one is me smacking implants with baseball bats, but as somebody's pitching to me and me hitting it. And then the second one, I'm gonna run over it with my truck. So I want you to, all right, so let's see. Who wants to go? Travis, you go first because I think you won the last thing. So, all right, so is it gonna survive the baseball bat?
Yes.
Okay, is it gonna survive being ran over with my truck?
Yes.
Okay, so you got 2 yeses. Sarah?
Yes.
Yes and yes. Okay, let's roll the baseball film. We're going to do the implant survivability challenge this episode. Baseball bat. That was terrible. Oh no. Okay, if you have breast implants, don't get them hit by a baseball bat.
This one's heavier. That's the problem.
Let's get a better hit. One survived, and we had one not survive. So we should do 2 out of 3. Yes, it survived. Yeah, that was a good hit too. All right, in this scientific study, 2 out of 3 implants hit with a baseball bat survived. Implant survivability challenge. So 2 out of 3 survive. So I guess technically that would be a survival.
Sure.
Yeah, so we'll say that you guys are right.
Nice.
That was pretty fun. Like
It looked really fun.
it was really windy that day, as you can tell, but that was a lot of fun. Like and it took us a while because that was my nurse Morgan, pitched it to me. Like we were like on like a real baseball field, and we were trying. I didn't want to hit her with the implant, right?
Absolutely.
So it took a few takes to like get a couple of good hits on it. But yeah, that one came up. I really got a hold of that first one, and it was pretty funny because it kind of came right at the cameraman.
Yeah, you got a good swing.
I used to play baseball back in the day, man. Yeah. So anyway, implants survivability for baseball bat is probably gonna survive.
Sure.
All right, let's roll the next clip.
Gosh.
So after yesterday, where I made a video putting a breast implant through a series of torture tests and it survived, everyone was like, "Run it over with your truck." Well, I know it's gonna pop, but let's do that shit for science. Oh my god! Oh my god, it didn't pop! What the hell? I was really surprised that it didn't. I thought for sure it was going to rupture. Now, I think if I'd have put it all the way under the tire, it might have ruptured. Because it was almost like it all just kind of squeezed out to the side. Yeah. And then when the tire came off of it, it just came right back in.
I know you talk about all the time, too, like how durable or how like tough and strong that they actually are. So.
Yeah. So kind of digging into that, they are very vulnerable to sharp damage. And so one of the things, like as a surgeon, you have to be careful with is when you put them in and you go to close the incision, like you can't nick them with like a needle or a knife or anything like that. I mean, you can, the shells are not like paper thin, but like you can cut them much easier than you can like break them open with blunt force trauma. Right. So a couple things I tell my patients, because I get these questions about like, how tough are these breast implants? They're very tough. I mean, I've seen many people come to my office and they're like, I was in a car crash, my whole chest is bruised, I have implants. What is the chance my implants are ruptured? And I mean, a couple times when people look really beat up, I'll send them to get a CT scan or MRI. I haven't found anybody that's ruptured their implant from trauma yet. Implants can rupture with age, like when they're years and years old. But like trauma, I just haven't seen it. Like it's not really a thing. So if you are an active person, you get a breast implant, you don't have to worry about them just like popping because you ride a horse or ride a dirt bike or whatever.
I'm not gonna lie, Dr. Herman. I'm more interested in these women who are riding horses and dirt bikes coming through your office.
Dude, I met a girl yesterday. She was very interesting. She was from Germany. And she, was talking about wanting to get breast implants. She's like, yeah, I ride dirt bikes. And she rode horses too. And she's like, I like to shoot bow and arrow. I was like, wow, you're like a really interesting person. Like,
thanks. I got to come by the office more often. What is
yeah, come on, man. Help me out there.
It's going to be an intern.
Yeah, you can be my intern. Yeah, it'd be awesome.
I got my hands sterilized. I'm ready.
Yeah. So the other thing I just want to kind of like say about breast implants, is like, what is like the maintenance or life expectancy? Because that does kind of go along with how tough they are. So the FDA wanted people to get MRIs every few years to check for rupture, and they wanted people to get them replaced every 10 years. And they still technically say that, but no one really does that anymore because because
mine's like 11 or 12.
Yeah. So what I tell people personally is I say, okay, this is what the FDA recommends. I personally don't recommend you do that because you're going to get a lot of MRIs that are completely normal. And I think it's a bad idea to change an implant at 10 years because these implants nowadays we don't even know how long they're going to last because they're lasting longer than they've been out. The new generation came out in 01, and I've replaced like maybe one set of like the new generation that's ruptured, but literally that's it.
Yeah.
So if you go and you replace them every 10 years, you're just putting people at risk by opening them up and and putting new implants in. So I tell my patients, if your implants aren't bothering you, don't worry about them. If you notice anything whatsoever, like your breast hardens, change shape, come see me, then we'll look into it. So, all right, if you like that segment, please give us a like. Subscription would be great. Leave us a comment. We want to know. If you have an idea of what I should do to a breast implant, please leave a comment. I will do it. I have boxes of these things. I will try it out.
Yeah, and then I can be in the video.
Yeah, we could do like a...
Messing up boob implant.
Come help me. Travis, get you out there too, buddy.
Let's do it.
All right. All right, do we got any time for questions, Travis?
Yeah, we do. We do.
Right. Any questions out there in the interwebs?
We do. We actually have a few. Okay. So first question, how often do patients have to go to the hospital after plastic surgery?
Okay, well, that would depend on if they mean do they have to stay in the hospital because the surgery so big or if they mean for complications. So we'll answer both questions. I'm not sure what they mean.
Sure.
So if you're talking about if you have to stay in the hospital overnight, that's very, very rare, especially if you're talking cosmetic surgery. Now, if you're talking like reconstruction surgery, the answer is sometimes. Like if I'm doing a breast reconstruction where somebody's getting a mastectomy and getting a reconstruction at the same time, we do keep those people overnight. But that's really about it as far as plastic surgery goes, at least for things that I do. All the cosmetic stuff I do, they go home the first day.
Yeah.
They don't stay overnight. Now, if you're talking about complications, well, you'd have to think, okay, someone has a really, really severe complication. So let me think about the 12, 13 years I've been in practice. I know I had one patient that had an anesthesia complication, and she had to go to the hospital because they were having trouble getting her off the ventilator. She was an older patient. Now, she ended up being totally fine, but she did have to go to the hospital. I had one patient, like many years ago, that got really constipated after surgery because she didn't let us know she wasn't having bowel movements, and she was taking pain medication, which slows down your bowels, and she let it kind of get away from her. And she actually had to go into the hospital to kind of get things moving again. And she ended up being totally fine too. Really, as far as like hospital admissions, that's the only thing I can remember. Now, I'm not saying that's it, because I mean, I've operated on like thousands of people, and there may have been one or two more, but I don't remember them.
Yeah.
So going to the hospital is pretty rare. Like that would be super, super rare.
Yeah.
Understood. Before we get to the next question, Robert Dreschel said we should do golf with the implants.
That's my buddy Rob. What's up, Robert? Golf with the implant. All right, man, we'll do it. Yeah.
I just keep envisioning that scene from Office Space where they're like destroying
the printer.
Oh gosh.
Yes.
That's what I keep thinking.
We got like the music playing in the background, like going to town.
In a random field.
Robert, we're gonna do that. We'll get a group of us out there, and we'll have to get small implants though, because it's got to sit on the tee.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting. Yeah, I have a couple of really small implants. We'll try that.
Hilarious. All right. The next question is: have you ever had to ask to be a plastic surgery? Oh, I'm sorry. Have you ever had someone ask to have their plastic surgery look like a filter?
Oh, filter. Oh, filter question. No, not specifically. Now, interestingly enough, I did, when I was doing the filter research for the segment that we just had, I did see an article that said that there is a trend of people asking to have plastic surgery to look like their filters.
Yeah.
I personally have not seen that. I would maybe believe it, because sometimes people will come to my office and say, I have a picture of like what I want to look like.
A celebrity's nose or something.
Right, yes, yeah. Or a friend's boobs or whatever. And for real, like that stuff happens. And so I could potentially see somebody like, doing a filter themselves and bringing it in. I haven't seen it myself, but there is an article out there saying that is a trend. So yeah, I mean, it happens. It hadn't happened to me. Yeah.
After we talked about the elf ears, I don't think anything is like, out of the
I'm
scope.
still like romancing the idea of trying the elf ear thing. I haven't found a plastic surgeon that said they would do it, but I don't know. Like, were you here for the elf ear thing?
Yes.
You were. You've been here so long now. It's like you've only missed a few episodes.
Yeah.
You're like the OG.
I was about to say Sarah's an OG.
Yes.
OG Sarah.
All right. I think that's about all the time we have today.
Yes, indeed.
Great episode. Thanks so much, both of you guys, for playing along with my crazy games. For everybody out there, please give us a like and a subscribe. Leave us a comment, and we'll see you next week on Nip Talk.